pay off the debt rather than save it, because today at the high rates we've got for debt, at round about a bond rate being 11.75%, you know, if you can get 11.75% after tax in any investment, you're doing brilliantly. But there are alternatives. You could think about increasing your retirement savings. That's where you get a tax deduction. So if you take your bonus and put it straight into retirement annuity, you'll get that full tax deductibility. You won't be paying the tax that I spoke about earlier on. And then if you're going to spend it, have a bit of fun. Don't now start putting money on your credit card and now find that I've spent that money on gifts and now I've got more debt because I've taken my credit card debt. And I think that a lot of people should be thinking of improving their, maybe doing some courses, improving their lot. So that could stand them in good stead for the future in helping to increase their earnings capacity or their roles in a company, or even finding new ventures and new opportunities because of that. So those are your three choices.
All right. So certainly lots for us to think about. Do we save it? Do we pay our debt, or do you spend it? And that's for those that are fortunate enough to be getting a bonus. And I know that, you know, with the state of the economy being what it is, there'll be lots of people who actually don't get bonuses, and lots of people, Brian, who are also trying to work on a side hustle, right? Trying to get an alternative form or means of making money. And that could well be part of what people choose to invest their bonuses into. We'll continue the conversation with Brian Hirsch. 086 000 2032 is the number to dial. 086 000 2032 on the WhatsApp voice note line 0614 104 107. I'll take your questions for Brian on the phone line and on the WhatsApp line. It's 10:30. Time for your latest headlines.
And in the headlines, 3 initiates have been shot dead at Sobukwe in the Eastern Cape, with the police reportedly investigating the incident. The Provincial Health Department has confirmed the deaths. In other news, the Limpopo farm manager, Mark Scott Crosley, has started to serve his sentence after the Napuno Magistrates Court outside Tzaneen gave him an 8-year jail term yesterday. Scott Crosley will serve the 8 years for attempted murder and 2 years for malicious damage to property. And the U.S. State Department says the week-long truce between Israel and Hamas fell apart because Hamas refused to free women hostages, not wanting them to speak publicly about sexual violence. More details on these and other stories at the top of the hour.
Taking a look at your markets this morning, the rand is currently trading at 18 rand 82 to the dollar, 23 rand 75 to the pound, and 20 rand 34 to the euro. Markets in Asia ended mainly lower. The JSE weaker in mid-morning trade. Markets in Europe are slightly down this hour. Gold is trading at $2,034, platinum $911 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil is at $78.40 a barrel.
SAFM. Beyond the headline on SAFM.
Was there confirmation from him to the HOD that indeed there was 600,000 rand cash that was found in his car?
Indeed, he did confirm. That's the report I got.
Okay, so he says that it is his money.
Yes.
Was there an explanation at least?
I don't think the HOD would have gone to that extent to get an explanation, since that very same explanation was to be given to the South African police. Look, Aldrin, the handbook for chief financial officers is very clear on ethical standards.
That is the MEC for Public Works in the Northern Cape, Fufe Makatong.
Beyond the headline with Aldrin Sampear on SAFM. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
I'm Michelle Constant. Join the JSB crew and I every Saturday and Sunday morning between 7 and 10 a.m. We promise to keep you informed and entertained with innovation, culture, cars, travel, life learnings, environment, and of course, your big fat juicy. Small stories, big ideas, massive inspiration. The Jet Set Breakfast on SAFM.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga.
What was the driving force for you guys to undertake this study?
So in August of this year, Minister Patel, Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition, tabled 2 bills before Parliament, the Companies Amendment Bill and the Companies Second Amendment Bill. part of the proposals that were made was to have remuneration disclosures and a remuneration policy that companies would then vote on at the annual general meetings. And in response to that, we decided to undertake a study that looked at publicly available data to try and compare what CEOs are earning to the average monthly earnings that are paid to the overall workers in South Africa.
Arabu Ewenyo, who is a researcher with the Southern Center for Inequality Studies at the University of Witwatersrand.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
Coming up on the book reading, Simply Larry.
Swaziland is his home, and the people of Swaziland his family. It is normal for people to want to be laid to rest amongst their own. That is what he chose. It was therefore fitting that Larry's story be told in Africa by an African.
Catch the book reading on SAFM Monday to Thursday at 11:45 on The Talking Boy.
The Portfolio Committee on Communications and Digital Technologies invites interested individuals and stakeholders to submit written comments on the SABC bill. The bill seeks to repeal the Broadcasting Act of 1999 to regulate the continued existence of the SABC, to provide its governance, to amend the ICASA Act of 2000 and the Electronic Communications Act of 2005. For more information, contact the Portfolio Committee of Communications and Digital Technologies by emailing sabcbill@parliament.gov.za, directed to Hanjiera Sali. The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana, weekdays 9 a.m. till midday.
All right, we continue talking finance with Brian Hirsch, and you heard the advice that he gave in terms of everybody who might be getting a bonus and what to do with that bonus. What is the best way to spend it? I mean, if I was getting a bonus, my emphasis would have been on the latter part of what you said, Brian.
Spend it.
Treat.
Look,
and live with the consequences in January.
Cathy, don't underestimate the spending because a lot of people, batteries are run down. And, it's the adrenaline each day that drives up our batteries. But then you wake up the next morning, your battery's flat. You need to do certain things to recharge that battery. I mean, everyone, I don't know anyone that's not tired if they haven't had leave this year. It's been a tough year. So spending money sometimes on recharging that battery also is important, moving you from the negative to the positive, because we do live in a lot of negative. There's a lot of positive going around, but there's so much negative news. You listen to the radio, you read the newspapers, you put the TV on, there's negativity. And so there's nothing wrong with recharging your batteries so that you're prepared for 2024. However, there's nothing worse than when you're in financial debt, you owe money, people are chasing you for money. There's nothing worse than that. So you've got to look at the balance carefully. I'm just going to make one comment. If you get a bonus, do not spend the bonus and get into more debt on your credit card because it's so easy to spend. If I can give any advice, that would be the best advice I could give going through into the 2024. All
right, Brian, thanks for that. I've got a couple of questions, WhatsApp voice notes that have come through for you already. I'm going to kick it off with this listener here. She's busy with a side hustle, Brian, and this is the advice that she's looking for.
Hello, hi, good morning, Cathy and Brian. It's Nora speaking here. I don't know if I'm going off topic here. I invested in an ice cream machine about 2 months ago. And it's been going great. The business is booming. I'm the only one who has this ice cream machine in my area. Now with the load shedding, I took my savings to buy the ice cream machine. Now I'm contemplating on buying a generator or an inverter, dipping into my savings again, and I'm so scared to do that. I don't know where the country is going. I don't know where things are going. I don't know if this is a good investment to make. I don't know, maybe Brian can give me some advice. I'm so scared. I'm in two minds. I don't know what to do. All right. Thank you very much. Have a fabulous day. Thank you. And enjoy your holidays, Brian. We'll see you next year. Thank you. Goodbye.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that. Look, the cost of doing business has gone up because of the load shedding. But you said your business is doing very nicely, and don't worry about where the country's going. The country has no impact whatsoever if you're going to eat ice cream or not. If you like ice cream, and with the summer coming up and it's very hot, people are going to eat ice cream. So you've got to build that cost into the business, and you may have to raise your prices slightly. Don't go overboard. But it's a lot of, if you've got an ice cream machine and I don't know where you're situated, but there's a lot of convenience where you've got an ice cream machine. So I would say, if you do have to buy a small generator to keep your business going, do the numbers like you would with any business. What is the cost of sales? What are you selling? And really, what is that? And I would say it sounds like a great idea, and I wouldn't be worried about where the country's going. Don't worry about the news. It has no impact. It's like that Business Day study where the father had brought up his children and had them educated by selling hamburgers on the side of the road. He had a caravan, he sold hamburgers, he educated his children, and his children came to his father and they said, we're definitely heading for a recession. We think you should buy less rolls. We don't think, we're really worried. So the father started buying less rolls. He started selling less hamburgers, and he was so impressed that his sons were so clever to have given him that advice. What terrible advice they gave him, because he didn't know about recession and what's happening in the world. He just knew to sell hamburgers, and he had enough stock to actually educate his children, who now told him about recession. Don't worry about that, Nora. You get out there and just do what you've got to do. You may be working longer hours to make up for the extra cost, but go for it.
And it's the perfect season for ice cream, right?
Love it.
The heat has been ridiculous. Maybe, if Nora, if you're in an area that's relatively safe, you can even keep your operating hours till a bit later on in the day, because it's getting hot in the evenings now than during the day on some days.
And also expand your products. The fact that you're selling ice cream, that does melt.
It brings you the footsteps, right?
Yeah, maybe you start doing other things. But if you've got the footsteps, do it, Nora. I think it's fantastic. Our maid who retired, unfortunately she lost her husband and she retired some years ago. She has now bought a braai, and she goes to outside a police station and she sells. Also, she cooks there from Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and she's doing exceptionally well.
Wow.
So it's lovely to hear these entrepreneurial ideas.
Yeah, sometimes you almost can't go wrong with food, right?
Yeah, but
you have to be trying very hard.
And don't worry about the headlines. I mean, what's going on anywhere in the world has no impact on whether you're going to sell ice creams or not.
All right. Okay, Brian, some good advice there. Helen in Nelspruit wants to know, I have a gardener, she says, who works for me once a week for 6 hours a day. Must I give him a 13th check?
Look, a 13th check is up to you. If you feel he's done a good job, you don't have to give him a full 13th check, but you can give him a bonus. It all depends on how it's whether someone gets a bonus or not depends on the individual giving the bonus. But if he's done a good job and you don't have to give him a 13th check. If you give him a few $100 as a bonus, I promise you he will appreciate that. Certainly if he's not expecting, and that's to any organisation. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. Sometimes even a 25% of salary would be very meaningful. Whatever we get today, we appreciate it. It's not about the quantum. It's about getting a little bit extra that you didn't expect.
Brian, I know this is your absolute favorite topic because you love speaking about it every time it comes up, Bitcoin. One of our listeners, Naheem Pierre in Durban, says Bitcoin is nearing 800,000 in rands. Please ask Brian about BlackRock, ETFs, halving, etc.
Look, maybe I'm just too old. I had David Shapiro on television with me on Monday night. That was last night. David's also been in the industry 1 year less than me. He's been in the industry over 50 years. And we are being accused by a lot of young people of just being the old school who don't want to change our thinking. I've changed my thinking when it comes to investing money, particularly in equities. I'm now investing in all new generation industries, not just necessarily the ones that have been around for years. If I think globally, if I think of companies like Nestle and Glaxo and companies that have been around for years that pay good dividends, the times have changed. I mean, there's a new drug now in America that's dealing with obesity.
Oh, Zempic.
It's called Zenpec. It's going to change the world because not only are people who take that drug going to lose weight, they're going to change their eating habits and their whole patterns. And they believe that will have some impact on medical devices and all the things that go. So Bitcoin has done exceptionally well. I mean, we saw Bitcoin at a much higher level 2 years ago. We saw it drop 18 months ago down to the 15,000 mark. It's now close to 40,000. Maybe one could consider a small percentage. You need to make sure that whatever you're investing in, you're going into the correct wallet. That means that you can get your money in and out. There's a lot of regulations now that have been discussed. I think that will benefit. And yes, it probably, even though I'm old school, it probably has a small, like everything else, gold may have a small component in your portfolio, and so may any of the cryptos. But look, there's so many of them. Stick to the ones that are well known. I know of Ethereum. I know of Bitcoin. So, yeah, maybe a few percent. Understand there's risk, but then there's, because what are you buying? When you buy an Apple or Amazon, you buy a PayPal, you buy a Louis Vuitton, you buy a Ferrari, you're buying what company you're buying. Here, it's sort of an idea that may or may not work. So it's not that I'm against it. I can't comment on it because I don't know enough about it. I don't fully understand it. And so, yes, but I think, I know the younger kids who have been doing it have done exceptionally well with it. So, yeah, you just understand that you are taking on some risk. Don't get overexposed to it, and just be careful.
And I suppose the risks that you're speaking about, Brian, is the most important thing that potential investors in Bitcoin and any other investment will need to do. Educate themselves on the associated risk, because while a lot of people, talk about the success rates they've had with Bitcoin, there have, of course, also been people who've suffered incredible losses with Bitcoin. And, that seems to be where part of the trouble is.
The big purchases in 2022, those people have lost. Bitcoin was close to 70,000. Let me also make this comment. You can ask me about a company, you can ask me about Roche, you can ask me about Eli Lilly, you can ask me about Amazon and Apple and Microsoft, and just to mention a few, you can ask me about Standard Bank, you can ask me about Pick and Pay against Checkers. I can look at a balance sheet. I don't know what I'm looking at when I look at Bitcoin. What is driving Bitcoin in terms of what's behind it? And I'm sure we could get many callers who've made a study of it coming down and say, Hirsch, you don't know what you're talking about because we've made the study. But we can't get a handle on actually understanding what the supply and demand is all about, because it's not being driven on success, on greater profits, on bigger returns, So, but it's certainly not something that people are discarding.
All right. Okay. Well, that's advice there for you. I'll take more of your WhatsApp voice notes and questions for Brian on the line. 086-000-2032 is the number to dial. On the WhatsApp voice note line, 0614-104-107. I'm going to take a break, and then I'm back with more of your calls after this.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 104.6 FM in Tshwane. The 16 Days of Activism for No Violence Against Women and Children campaign. This year, be an activist. Play your part. Do not protect abusers. Report them. #No to GBVF. SAFM leading the conversation. The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
We're leading the conversation on SAFM. You're listening to The Talking Point, and we're talking finance with Brian Hirsch. It's our final segment for the year. Brian, of course, will be back with us in the new year. Brian, we received a call, and I've just gotten a message on the WhatsApp line that reminded me of the call we took from Anonymous yesterday. Anonymous's brother basically, saw an ad on a pole somewhere. And this individual was promising to increase his money. And he took just over 6,000 Rand to said individual. And now the money not only not increased, but he's struggling to actually get his money back. So they promised that they're going to turn that 6,000 into 600,000. I don't know how, but, it's one of the scams that are out there, especially now over the festive season, because people, they want to have a good time over the period. They want to be able to make their loved ones happy. And a lot of that sometimes centers on money, i.e. what you're able to buy and not buy. And I want you to talk to us about scams, because I do feel that it is that time of the year where people are perhaps a bit more vulnerable than they are throughout the year.
Well, let me just compare this to someone else. You go onto one of these dating sites and you start to meet someone, and then that someone starts to ask you for your money. Well, that's a good sign to end that conversation. So when you're looking at it too good to be true, turning 6,000 into 600,000 Rand, how? It's for anything like that. Seems out of the impossible. The banks today are paying for longer terms around about 10%. Government retail bonds on a 5-year basis are now have come down from 11.75 to 10.75, which is indicating interest rates are starting to come down. So if anyone promises you riches, with giving you back money, and they can make that sort of money, why do they want to bother trying to get your money? Why just take their money and keep doubling it and trebling and quadrupling it? So I can only say this about scams. If it sounds too good to be true and you're attracted to it because it sounds so true, the chances are you are getting taken for a ride. Guys who play poker, and I know I'm using some analogies today, they say if you sit down at a poker table, have a look at all the players and have a look at who is the palooka in the room. And if you can't see the palooka, guess who's the palooka? You. You, the individual. So if you are promised riches, I can only say this, stay away from them. If they're not branded organizations, if it's not, and I'm just mentioning names, if it's not Standard Bank or Investec or Coronation or Anchor or any of the other names, the First Rands, all those names, the Alan Greys, if it's not one of those companies, stay far away from them. It's probably too good to be true. It's a scam.
Yeah, and I suppose
we can't keep talking about it enough. I mean, we had one whole program. The whole program was people who were getting scammed. Just stay away from these get-rich schemes. They don't work. We had the death of a doyen in South Africa yesterday, Eric Ellerine. He died at the age of 90. Eric started at the age of 16. He built up Ellerines. He worked, he still went to work at the age of 90 in a tie. He still walked the floors of his stores. He did not make money overnight. It took him years. Money is not made overnight, although there's sometimes someone will call and say, well, I did make money overnight. And remember, if it's a scam, someone will make money. Someone will tell you how well they did, and they will prove their success. That's how you get caught in a Ponzi scheme. Stay away.
All right. Charlotte is calling in from the Western Cape. Charlotte, good morning.
Good morning. I was just listening now to how to make money. I'm feeling a bit beaten by Take a Lot because I bought a TV and I've returned it because I wasn't happy with the product. And now they have the one story on the other and sending me emails, but they don't respond when I send them emails. Now they say I took out something from the box. TV stand or something, which I never did. And it feels for me that I've been scammed now by Takealot. I'm calling them almost every day. They cannot give me an answer. First of all, it was the product hasn't arrived at the store or on the premises. This morning they told me that I've took out something from the box. So what do I do with Takealot? I mean, I'm calling the call center. Nobody wants me to speak to any supervisor. The people in the call center, they just block me there, and they're sending me emails. Now, I don't know how to get my money back from Takealot, because that was a Black Friday special, and for status, they haven't even trying to resolve the problem. Say, look, we can offer you this product or that product. Because the product that they actually sent me is an analog TV, and it's going to go off from the market. SABC is not going to give them channels anymore from December.
Okay, can I stop you there, because you've made the point, and there's still one or two calls we want to take. Look, very simply, there's a lady at the Sunday Times business section. Her name is Wendy Nola. She's a phenomenal investigative reporter. She'll investigate these things. I'm surprised, and I would be disappointed if someone didn't put this call through and Takealot to get back to you. So maybe what we should do is let's just take your number, let our producer just take your number, in case that someone does phone from Takealot to say, we've heard this lady complaining, that's not our style. This is the first complaint I've heard, but that doesn't mean I'm not in that type of journalism, and I'm not in that sort of field where people will phone and tell me about that. Our business is about investments. So we'll take your number back just in case someone did call from Takealot. Just keep going. I'm trying to think, who's the organisation that actually owns Takealot?
Isn't it now? I don't want to get myself tied up.
I'll tell you what we'll do. I'll also take your number down, and so if you give your number to our producer, and I'll do to you as a favour, I'll find out who owns Takealot, and I will then send you details of what company you can call. I hope that helps.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
All right.
And I'm looking forward to your call.
All right, Charlotte. All the best with that. Brian, this is just another one on investing.
Morning, Cathy and Brian. Can you please assist me? I want to invest. So where can I invest my money? Thank you.
Sure, that's a very wide question. Where can you invest your money? But it's a good question, simply because let's start at the beginning. The first objective you've got to determine is, are you investing for the short term, which means, am I saving money to spend in the next 2 to 3 years? What time horizon am I taking? And then determine, do I want to take on long-term risk versus guarantees? Because money in a bank and a money market account will give you a guaranteed amount, but depending on your tax circumstances, someone earning 10% on their money and paying 45% in tax is only earning 5.5%, not even beating inflation. So you've got to determine. So and then what other investments have you got? Where are you at the moment? You say, I want to invest money. That's a piece of a jigsaw puzzle. What does the other jigsaw puzzle take into account? What are your circumstances? Are you married? When will you need the money? So there's a lot of questions, but what you should be doing is speak to your bank. All the banks today have financial advisors employed by these banks. They're responsible for giving you appropriate advice, and ask your bank to send one of their financial advisors, or call the Financial Planning Institute, the FPI, and they will certainly introduce you to a financial planner in your region.
Brian, we're edging towards the end of the show. I wanted perhaps to wrap it up with this. What are you looking forward to the most in 2024?
Well, I'm looking forward to actually a good election. That's one of the most important things. Mm-hmm. I'm looking for a lot of things. We talk about electricity, we talk about load shedding, we talk about water. I'd like to see some real improvement there and something really happening. On the financial side, I'd like to see stability. I'd like to see interest rates coming down. I'd like to see our rand strengthening, because I think that is an important component of protecting people for interest rates. I wouldn't like to see the bill passed of NHI. That's one thing I don't want to see until all the components are dealt with. Although we understand universal healthcare is critical for all South Africans. They all have to get access to good healthcare. And I'm just looking maybe for, in the world, I'm looking for world peace, people who are starving from Somalia and all over the world, the hotspots in the world where people don't have liberties, some improvement there. Most important, peace in the Middle East, peace in Ukraine and Russia, and maybe just less going on globally that has such a negativity impact. And hopefully people can, and then the most important thing is a reduction in crime, that people can enjoy their lives and live their lives peacefully without fearing that there will be issues and that their families are not safe. I mean, that's so critical, the safety of our loved ones.
Brian, it's been such a pleasure having you with us for yet another year.
The 30th year on the program. Next year, we enter 31.
That is amazing. Absolutely incredible. Thank you for all of the advice that you give us, selflessly so, how you're committed and dedicated to this program. It really is commendable. I hope you enjoy your break over the festive season and you come back ready to continue with the good work and help us all get our financial affairs in order.
Well, my batteries are already recharged. They've been recharged for a long time. Cathy, thank you to you. Thank you to all those that have helped in the studio. And most important, thanks to our listeners. Yeah. Because without our listeners calling and asking questions, and I'll leave with this, you can never ask a stupid question. The question you ask is some question that everyone wants to know, but they're just too nervous to ask. But you can only get a stupid answer from me. So I wish all our listeners and everyone at SABC, SAFM, Cathy, you, your family, your twins, and all our staff, Lebo, and everyone who's played such an important role in putting this program together every Tuesday morning.
All right. Brian, we'll see you again in 2024. Yes, I know it was on the tip of my tongue. Who owns Takealot? It's Naspers. And we'll, of course, continue with Brian in the new year. For now, it's 11 o'clock. Time for the latest news.
Independent and impartial. This is SAFM News.
Top stories this hour. Initiates shot dead in the Eastern Cape and 5 people arrested following the vigilante killing in Diepsloot. Good morning. 3 initiates have been shot dead at Tenqamakwe in the Eastern Cape. Police are investigating the incident. The provincial health spokesperson, Sizwe Kopelo, has confirmed the deaths.
The department can confirm a shooting incident that has claimed the lives of 3 initiates in the area of Nqamakwe. Circumstances surrounding the incident will be the subject of a police investigation. Our officials have also been dispatched to the scene, and forensic officials have already collected the bodies.
The Limpopo farm manager, Mark Scott Crosley, has started serving his sentence. The Napuno Magistrates Court outside Tzaneen gave him an 8-year jail term yesterday. Scott Crosley will serve the 8-year term for attempted murder and 2 years for malicious damage to property. The sentences will run concurrently. He has been convicted for using his vehicle to run over a farm worker, Silence Mabunda, and damaging his cell phone. The incident happened in Woodspruit in 2016. The court has said that Scott Crosley did not show any remorse during the trial. Boni Mahoba reports.
Handing down judgment, the presiding officer has said that it is the duty of the courts to apply the rule of law. The court has also said that the sentence will serve as a lesson and will also deter other perpetrators to commit the same offense. The presiding officer says the accused has violated the rights of the victim. Scott Crosley was found guilty on the 4th of October this year. Scott Crosley also served a sentence from being an accomplice for 3 overthrowing a farm worker in Lion's Den in Hoedspruit in 2004.
Gauteng police have reportedly nabbed 5 murder suspects. The arrests come after a vigilante group tortured and burned 7 people to death in Diepsloot, north of Johannesburg, at the weekend. One of the suspects has been identified as an eyewitness who later led police to 4 more suspects. The provincial police spokesperson, Dimakatso Nebuwili, says all the suspects are expected to appear in the Randburg Magistrates Court tomorrow.
All 5 suspects aged between 30 and 38 years old were arrested and are expected to appear before Randburg Magistrates Court on the 6th of December 2023. More arrests are expected as police investigations continue.
The Pakistani education activist and Nobel laureate Malala Yousafzai is preparing to deliver the 21st Nelson Mandela Annual Lecture at the Johannesburg Theatre later today. Today marks the 10th anniversary of Madiba's death. The theme for this year's commemoration is "The Legacy Lives On Through You." The Nelson Mandela Foundation's acting CEO, Vern Harris.
We're reminded of the words that he gave not only us, but the whole world, actually. You will remember this when he said, "It's in your hands now." And that was the message he kept conveying to us until he died. More than ever, we need that inspiration to keep going. The challenges get bigger and bigger, but if the legacy of Madiba means anything, it means that we keep going, we keep struggling for that just society, and we don't give up.
And moving further afield, the U.S. State Department says the week-long truce between Israel and Hamas fell apart because Hamas refused to free women hostages, not wanting them to speak publicly about sexual violence. The remarks come after hundreds protested outside the U.S. headquarters yesterday, criticizing the organization for inaction over the mistreatment, abduction, and rape of Israeli women. A State Department spokesperson, Matthew Miller, says Washington had no reason to doubt reports of rape by Hamas.
We've obviously seen the reports that Hamas has committed sexual violence, they've committed rape. We have no reason at all to doubt those reports. When you look at all of the atrocities that Hamas carried out on October 7th and the atrocities that they have carried out since, the fact that they continue to hold women hostages, the fact that they continue to hold children hostages, the fact that it seems one of the reasons they don't want to turn women over that they've been holding hostage, and the reason this pause fell apart, is they don't want those women to be able to talk about what happened to them.
And recapping our top story this hour, 3 initiates have been shot dead at Nqamakwe in the Eastern Cape, with the police reportedly investigating the incident. The Provincial Health Department has confirmed the deaths. Mpositolo will bring you the headlines at the bottom of the hour. For SFM News, I'm Nomalizo Mandela.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 105.1 FM in Johannesburg. The SABC News Portal is your one-stop digital platform for all the news you need. Stay connected with the latest and breaking stories. Listen to all SABC radio stations live, including podcasts, and also watch the SABC News channel with clips and live streams of all the big news events. Simply download the SABC News app on your smartphone from the Play or App Store. SABC News, independent and impartial. The award-winning SAFM Playwriting Competition is back.
SAFM, which many of you would know right now, we're launching the popular drama playwriting competition. The aim is to promote literacy and also ignite love for sharing South African stories.
Well, everything has gone up. The price of petrol. Hey, Wena, are you saying that this phone uses petrol?
Our writers are being invited to explore the medium of sound and really go into the theatre of the mind.
People see the pictures in their own color, in their own images, in their own faces.
For a chance to win one of 3 large cash prizes, visit safm.co.za. The Portfolio Committee on Communications and Digital Technologies invites interested individuals and stakeholders to submit written comments on the SABC bill. The bill seeks to repeal the Broadcasting Act of 1999 to regulate the continued existence of the SABC, to provide its governance, to amend the ICASA Act of 2000 and the Electronic Communications Act of 2005. For more information, contact the Portfolio Committee of Communications and Digital Technologies by emailing sabcbill@parliament.gov.za, directed to Hanjiera Sali.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana, weekdays 9 a.m. till midday.
Isibani is the name of the song, and much of the time that we hear the song is in commemoration of those who lost their lives in the struggle for freedom, in the struggle for this country to be where it is today. While the Pan-Africanist Congress of Azania is launching their year-long Robert Mangaliso Sobukwe's centenary commemoration, he's the founding president of the PAC. He, of course, was also a lawyer, academic, and there'll be various events that are held throughout the year to mark his life, his contribution. The Robben Island Museum, and Robben Island, of course, is where he was imprisoned, had also declared 2023 as the year of Sobukwe. To remind ourselves about his legacy, we're joined in studio by Jackie Seroke, who is the PAC Secretary of Finance. Mr. Seroke, good morning to you. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Good morning, and thanks for having me.
Mzwanele Nyoncho is the PAC President. Mzwanele, good morning.
Morning, Cathy, and morning to your viewers. And morning to the Stone.
All right. And okay. And later on today, of course, we'll also hear from the Nelson Mandela Museum and get a sense of how the year of commemorating Sobukwe's life on their part has gone. So, Ndade Jackie, let me perhaps give you the first bite at this. Why the need to have commemorations like this as the PAC has planned?
Robert Mangaliso Sobukwe has made a great impact on the psychology and the life of a nation yet to be born. He has also made a large footprint that goes throughout the international world, proclaiming the conditions of African people here and in the rest of the continent. Such people comes once in a century. And we in the PAC have felt that it would be amiss of us not to raise his name and learn from his actions, his thoughts, and his ideas, basically, because he's a man of good standing, a man of integrity.
Ntate Mzwanele, these commemorations will, of course, coincide with what will be South Africa marking 3 decades of its democracy. What is it that you think is presented to us as a country in terms of the opportunity to sit and reflect on where we are today, drawing from some of these giants that have in many ways paved the way? And I think what we are supposed to be is building on the legacy they've left behind.
Oh, yes. Once more, greetings, Cathy. And firstly, we, as the PAC, we have a responsibility to make sure that Sobukwe's legacy is not thrown out of history. And that's one of the reasons why we are launching this centenary today, later today in Port Elizabeth or Kadeha. Now, going forward next year, which is going to coincide with 30 years of our democracy, we also want to remind our people for what Sobukwe in particular stood for, and for what Sobukwe fought for, and for what Sobukwe and other stalwarts of our struggle died for. If we want to reflect and see if what they stood for is really what we achieved in this so-called 30 years of our democracy, when we are still living in the conditions we are living today.
So, in trying then to organize events around this centenary commemoration, what were the objectives in terms of what you would want to get out of any kind of event that you will be hosting? What will you be focusing on?
One will be focusing on Sobukwe's legacy himself, because we believe that he has not yet been celebrated by this country. We believe that his legacy is deliberately suffocated in this country by the powers that be. And we're grateful to the institutions like your Robben Island, those that have declared 2023 as the year of Sobukwe. Now the universities are coming on board now. Nelson Mandela University in Kadeha, University of Fort Hare. We're hoping to have a series of lectures around Sobukwe, political classes, and educate everybody about Sobukwe, including renaming of Graf Reinet as Robert Mangaliso Sobukwe Town, which is already on the table of the Eastern Cape provincial government. And some in Graf Reinet are objecting to it, of course, on the basis that they are racist. So we want to achieve all those years in 2024 during Sobukwe's centenary, not also forgetting that our cry and our call for the University of Fort Hare to be renamed after Sobukwe will be intensified next year. And also it will be elections. We'll also remind our people that the Sobukwe's organization is ready to govern and give them true and real liberation in this country.
Dr. Jackie, when you think about Sobukwe's legacy and just in the spirit of what you want to achieve through these commemorations, education, getting academics involved in the conversation, let's talk about perhaps 3 things which, according to you, we should be drawing from his life and carrying forward as a country.
Yes, I want to highlight the 3 as such. First, Sobukwe was a scholar and a gentleman. He personified the idea of study, of fairness, objective approach to learning. He was a wonderful scholar, and he identified himself as a thought leader. That's why I say he was a scholar and a gentleman. A gentleman because he was a man of integrity. He highlighted uprightness of character, absolute honesty, and he lived that, not just said it. That's one point. The other point is that he became the combination of bold intellectuals and political leaders. He had a promising career in the academic field as a tutor and a lecturer at the University of the Witwatersrand. But he took his abilities as something that could help the political world, the changes that were needed in the country. So he brought into politics ideas as the main thing that should drive the liberation struggle. And those ideas, he linked them up articulately to mean the people and the politicians should be one. I think the other issue that, the third one, would be for me, Sobukwe's own personal sacrifices. He made supreme sacrifice. He would have continued with a career and a living like anybody else, but he sacrificed himself, his family, and his people, including his followers, for the greater good. And that sort of selflessness is rare to come across.
Ntate Mzwanele, this issue of selfless leadership, and when I think about selfless leadership, I also think about servant leadership, right? That you need leaders that are able to primarily serve before they can do anything else, because then you can trust the intentions of the person if they're able to serve you at an individual level. Do you think that that's where we are today, that the kind of leadership we have produced as a country within this democratic dispensation is one that is focused on servanthood and service, which really requires the selflessness that Ntate Jackie is talking about?
No, we, as Comrade Jackie has said, it's very rare to get those type of leaders. We really need leaders who think high and live simple. But unfortunately, as Sobukwe was, but unfortunately, leaders today are living high. Are living high and think simple. I mean, the standard of our leadership, the selflessness in leaders, that character was only with Sobukwe, who are all striving to be like him. But as things stand, our leaders of the country and so on, those who have responsibility to serve our people now, no, they can't even be compared to those leaders. They live simple. They live high. They wear watches for 2 million. When everyone in this country lives going to bed without food. But our leaders live high. They are corrupt. Others have even converted their excesses into dollars and so on. Now we can't have those selfless leaders. We are really in need of them, taking into consideration the situation of our country, the situation of our people, and everything else.
So then, where do we go? Where do we go if we are to be intentional about cultivating again this leadership that we want to see? Because it's one thing to hold events and have conversations about somebody like Sobukwe, but the reality is what we want to see is how then those conversations translate into something that can be not only passed on, but that can be used as a guide, as a tool to bring up a generation of leaders that are different to what we currently have.
Yes, that's why I'm saying today it goes back to us as individuals, and it goes back to our own behaviors as individuals. That's why I was saying people live high, but they think simple. Now, we are trying to do that, and then we're taking it to our meetings to our workshops, and everywhere we go, we always lecture people about Sobukwe, how he behaves, how this man was even taking third class in the train when he had money to buy cars, but he did not. When this man would go and represent poor people in court in Kimberley, Khalashiwe, when this man would always be among the poorest of the poor, when our own leaders, when going to the people, they go there with bodyguards, big guns, black cars, you can't even, it's even difficult to greet them. So this is what we are telling our people. This is what we are in all these lectures around Sobukwe, conversations, meetings. We always say, that's why we even now as PAC have a theme that says, let us be like Sobukwe. Because we want to emulate him, we want to live his legacy, we want to behave like him, so that even the leaders after us can really live the way our Sobukwe did, and that will be good for our country going forward.
I want to take a couple of WhatsApp voice notes that are coming through from our listeners on this very conversation.
Morning, Cathy, and the leadership of the PAC, the steps on Bloemfontein. I'm very happy to hear that 45 minutes of your show will be dedicated to Sobukwe. It's very rare to hear that on the radio. There are people in this country that are doing this intentionally to undermine the contribution of PAC towards the liberation of this country. They are reducing it to nothing. You know, I was under the impression that Mandela was the longest serving prisoner, but I was a political prisoner. In fact, I was wrong. I heard that it was a member of PAC, Jeff Masemola. You know, we were told about Kalushi. Kalushi was hanged by the apartheid government, but no one is saying anything about the Vulindlela brothers. Imagine 5 members of a family are being hanged by the apartheid government.
No, it's incorrect for a guest to believe that Sobukwe is not being recognized. I'm an NC member, but I feel also that the government is not recognizing him to the fullest. There's a difference between not being recognized and not being recognized to the fullest. It's a debate of some sort that will continue forever. Thank you, Butinkonke Indo in the Eastern Cape.
I think different things coming out there from our listeners. One of the issue of recognition, and it seems to be something that comes up ever so often. Do you still feel as the PAC that there isn't and there hasn't been enough recognition for Sobukwe? And I also say this in the context of the fact that there are leaders from other movements, including the ANC itself, who have the same gripe, by the way, of individuals who they feel do not have that recognition but deserve it.
Yeah, no, I think that sometimes these issues are overplayed and stretched like elastic to, in the end, lose meaning. What is very important for recognition of Sobukwe is for the masses as a whole to put them in their pride of place, that is in their hearts and minds, and know that there once was a person like Sobukwe. So the education around Sobukwe, especially on an intergenerational level, in my view, has scored very high. The lauding from government and other institutions obviously is decided by a select few and so on. But what for me matters is that in the past 30 years, if you like, the campaign to raise the name of Sobukwe has been very successful. Someone has used an image that Sobukwe is like a cock in water that cannot be submerged under the water. He always rises up. So in most conversations, political, religious, educational, and so on, the name of Sobukwe comes up. And for me, that is what is important. What is also not correct is to try and portray Sobukwe as being under the shadow of the African National Congress. Sobukwe was a patriotic hero. He was a religious man, and he prayed for everyone, for all political prisoners, for everyone who's in conditions that are not so good. He opened his heart out, and he was not even anti-white as such. So his message and his ideas need to be studied, learned, and I think they will make a good contribution to younger politicians to change their lives, especially away from the issue of conspicuous consumption that we see nowadays. I mean, those leaders offered themselves, offered their skills to greater society, and that are the things that we should learn from Sobukwe.
Ndata Mzwanele, anything you want to add before I go to the 11:30 news headlines?
Yes, I agree with Comrade Stone. Sobukwe was a leader of the African people, not leader of the PAC. But I agree with him also that we are trying hard to make sure that Sobukwe's legacy is known almost everywhere. But we are not, what we have taken, a resolution that we have taken as this leadership of the PAC, that let us stop complaining and say, this thing, the ANC is doing this to Sobukwe or is not doing this to Sobukwe. Let us play our own part, our own role in taking our lead, not only Sobukwe. Somebody there just mentioned that Jeff Masemola and others. So it is our responsibility as PAC to make sure that leaders of the PAC are known, and also what they stood for is known. I think we are really excelling in doing that. Nobody can say we are lying.
All right. We'll continue the conversation reflecting on what is the beginning, really, of Sobukwe's centenary celebrations and a year of commemorating his life. I'm in conversation with Jackie Seruke, who's the PAC Secretary of Finance, and Mzwanele Nyoncho, who's the PAC President. On the other side of the latest news headlines, we'll also hear from the Robben Island Museum.
Thanks, Cathy. Good morning. For SFM News, I am Mposa Tole. Making headlines, charity organisation Save the Children says it believes the recent attempts to transport more than 400 unaccompanied Zimbabwe children to South Africa was child smuggling, not trafficking. It comes after the Border Management Authority officials said they intercepted 42 buses carrying 443 children under the age of 8 at the border post in Musina, Limpopo. In other news, 3 initiates have been shot dead at Ngamakwe in the Eastern Cape. Police are investigating the incident. Provincial Health spokesperson Sizwe Kupelo says the deaths have been confirmed. And further afield, perhaps even closer to home, the Pakistani educational activist and Nobel laureate Malala Yousafzai is preparing to deliver the 21st Nelson Mandela Annual Lecture at the Johannesburg Theatre later today. Today marks the 10th anniversary of Madiba's death. I'll have these and other stories at the top of the hour.
Hashtag SAFM Talking Point.
We continue the conversation on the talking point. We are talking about the centenary commemorations of Robert Mangaliso Sobukwe's life. Joining us on the line is Chimangadzo Nemaheni, who is the Chief Heritage Officer of the Robben Island Museum. Chimangadzo, good morning to you.
Good morning, Cathy, and good morning to all your listeners.
I guess in many ways, what the PAC is embarking on now, you have had the opportunity to test through 2023, which was a year that you had declared as a Sobukwe year. What have been some of the things that you have discovered this year as you held your commemorations?
Yes, you are correct. First, I would like to say that Robben Island is a well-rated site. It is a site that belongs to everyone in South Africa and the world over. And what we have decided this year is that we have to celebrate the life and times of Mangaliso Robert Sobukwe, who was the founding president of the Pan-Africanist Congress of Azania. And apart from that, we have launched this event on the 4th of May. That was the date that Mangaliso Sobukwe arrived on the island, on Robben Island, in 1963. And we are promoting the teachings of Sobukwe, because as a World Heritage Site and as a heritage site generally, we have to ensure that Robben Island is a representative of all the population of South Africa. A person in Limpopo, a person in KZN, a person in Northern Cape should be able to associate with Robben Island, not forgetting that as a World Heritage Site, all the people should be associated with Robben Island. But coming to the Sobukwe year, we realize that as we celebrate this year, we have to mark the day in which Sobukwe was born, which is the 5th of December. And luckily, we had to host we first hosted the memorial run, which was celebrating which was commemorating his passing on the 5th of December. And also, we realized that we have to ensure that Nelson Mandela, who passed on the same day, should also be commemorated. That's why we had a memorial run dubbed Sobukwe and Mandela at 60, which means that they have spent almost 6 years. It is 6 years after they've been incarcerated on Robben Island prison in South Africa. So there are many other events that are going to take place, because most of our events that take place, they are taking place under the banner of Robert Mangaliso Sobukwe, or the banner of the year of Mangaliso Sobukwe. Thank you.
All right. You deal with a lot of not only local audiences but also international audience. What kind of interest would you say there has been in those that are visiting your facility in Sobukwe's life, wanting to learn more about who he was, the organization that he founded?
In fact, if I can tell you, we have realized that Sobukwe was not an ordinary man. He was an extraordinary individual. And as tourists come here, you won't believe me if I say that when they visit the Robert Sobukwe house, most of them shed tears. The students that come here, both from primary and secondary, as well as university, they shed tears because of hearing about the story of Mangaliso Robert Sobukwe. International visitors as well, coming from countries like Britain, United States, and other European countries, they also shed tears because we do have an exhibition at the Nelson Mandela Gateway to Robben Island. We have got an exhibition about his life at the Sobukwe complex. But if you go to the Sobukwe complex on the island, we do have the house in which he was isolated. We also have got a complex, the children's house. This is the house that his children would come and stay over when they come to see him, and also the dog kennels that were brought after the 1976 students arrived on the island. Yes.
All right. Certainly great to hear the level of interest that there is in his life and his contribution. Nhlanhla, you're calling us from KZN. Good morning. All right, it looks like we've lost Nhlanhla there. Jackie, I imagine that it doesn't come as a surprise to you to see the level of interest that there is in Sobukwe's life.
Surprisingly, it does, because I have thought that only when you are glamorous and in the celebrity mode do people recognize you. But Sobukwe's life of sacrifice, of immense suffering, really hits home, because, like me, each time I go to Robben Island and go to Sobukwe's house, and I wonder how a man can be treated as such, and yet he continued to be a humble person and understood events above what had happened to him. I'm surprised, Cathy, because when young people do this, it should be surprising because they have other concerns and other needs. But if there's that intergenerational thing, I'm happily surprised.
Ntate Mzwanele, there's also the reality of the fact that a centenary of Sobukwe's life also means that an opportunity at looking at the organization that he founded and the state that it's in today. From an organizational point of view, what are some of the reflections that you are going to be embarking on?
Yeah, firstly, Cathy, let me take this opportunity and talk to Robben Island and address other interested parties on Sobukwe. That one, the mistake, whilst we are grateful with everything that they are doing, but they have a tendency of commemorating Sobukwe without PAC, and we firmly believe that is wrong. They only involve Sobukwe Trust, not PAC of Sobukwe. Even this year, on the 3rd of May, I was on Robben Island, and I went there. The PAC was not even on the program, and yet I was there. And people must not try and separate Sobukwe and from the PAC. That is what people have been doing, trying to take Steve Biko away from Azapo, and they're doing it with Sobukwe. So Robben Island must communicate with PAC and the trust at the same time. But the PAC must not be left outside. That's one. Number two, we, as I've said it earlier, that we are going to also use this opportunity to take the organization of Sobukwe, which is PAC, and make sure that what Sobukwe stood for next year is realized. Remember, as this leadership of the PAC was standing in defense of a people betrayed. And we are going to next year's elections, in all these lectures, all these meetings about Sobukwe, also reminding people that what Sobukwe fought for has not yet been attained. We will tell them about Sobukwe, and we will tell them how the revolution and the real struggle for land was cheated and betrayed in this country. Because at the center of Sobukwe, there's a land question, which is what Sobukwe was fighting for, which is what all political parties or liberation movements were fighting for. The item of conflict has always been land, and that land is still in the hands of our former oppressors. So we will be taking those matters because the land question will always be at the center of a PAC manifesto going to elections. So we'll be taking those matters, including the issues that affect our people daily, unemployment. More than half of the youth in this country is unemployed.
All right.
The landlessness, the health issues. Sobukwe's wife, the mother of the nation, died from a public hospital because she could not afford high-quality health care. Now, we must take all those, the crime, where every day a person is killed in South Africa. And of late, these criminals has also audacity to rob the minister and confiscate arms, state firearms, because there is lawlessness. There's no one who can be trusted. So we'll take all those issues as part of our campaign and as part of our Sobukwe's legacy.
Sure. Nhlanhla, I'm going to try and squeeze you in here. You understand you're back on the line. Good morning.
Good morning, and good morning to the guest.
Yes, Nhlanhla?
Yes, all right. My contribution to the topic on Sobukwe's celebration is actually a question to the guest, the PAC leader, on the impact of funding or underfunding of the PAC itself, and that related to Sobukwe's suppression as a leader that contributed a lot to this country. The financial suppression, as we have seen, for instance, we can make an example. For instance, you've had during this Israel-Palestine war that's going on, even the academics, the likes of university, the academic university in US, it was threatened with being defunded by the Israeli the wealthy Israeli Zionist supporters. So this goes, it's a similar pattern in this country as well. The PAC will never get the funding, including Sobukwe's image. Sobukwe's image will never get the funding because, unfortunately, they're not speaking the language that's in the interest of those who are wealthy. Unfortunately, the wealthy ones will always fund the ideas that are supporting them.
All right.
Secondly,
All right, Nhlanhla.
Secondly, even the very same ideas, the very good ideas of Sobukwe, they'll never see they'll never see the light because you need academics in the universities. You need the university to speak about Sobukwe. The universities are not funded to do that. They're not doing that. They are speaking a lot about, even today, I heard a lot about Mandela. Right. I've got no problem with Mandela, but there's nothing said about Sobukwe.
Nhlanhla, I'm running out of time. We've got the book reading coming up. So, Ndata Jackie, maybe just briefly for us, where can people go to follow the events?
We have a PAC website and some of the social media platform where these events will be announced, and we'll also go to commercial and public media to announce our events. But at all this, we invite everyone, not necessarily supporters of the PAC, including everybody else.
All right. Let me thank you all for your time this morning. Unfortunately, we're completely out of time for this conversation. Up next is the book reading.
The Portfolio Committee on Communications and Digital Technologies invites interested individuals and stakeholders to submit written comments on the SABC bill. The bill seeks to repeal the Broadcasting Act of 1999 to regulate the continued existence of the SABC, to provide its governance, to amend the ICASA Act of 2000 and the Electronic Communications Act of 2005. For more information, contact the Portfolio Committee of Communications and Digital Technologies by emailing sabcbill@parliament.gov.za, directed to Hanjiera Sali. The award-winning SAFM Playwriting Competition is back.
I remember a time when my grandmother, she would make sure that she never missed that story.
SAFM invites all writers to explore the medium of sound.
I mean, I remember Pipito, she remember all of those. It's like, what is this?
Yeah.
And it was fiction.
The theater of the mind. And to create a 1-hour radio play in English, get writing now and submit your play before the 22nd of January 2024. For more information, visit safm.co.za.
Polokwane City want to test if Kaizer Chiefs can handle the Limpopo heat. Their plan is to get a comfortable position in the top half, but the Kosi Nation is in a good mood to collect maximum points away from home. Rise and Shine versus Rise Kosi Rise. This is the DSTV Premiership. Polokwane City versus Kaizer Chiefs on Saturday, 9 December at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC1 and SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The book reading. Please note the views expressed in this book are not that of the station. Listeners' discretion is advised. SFM presents another episode of Simply Larry, read by Simpiwe Nkosi, written by Elias Masilela.
Chapter 15. Irish-English Conundrum in the Community. My View. Father Michael John Mbungane Welton, SDP. It is instructive to open this chapter with a quotation from its subject, in which we conclude that the subject of the Irish versus the English amongst the Silesians is a very interesting one for an outsider. This is also important because it was one inherent divide amongst the members of the community, a divide they had to manage very carefully to keep the spirit, as they say. Whilst their history divided them, their cause kept them as one. There is no better person than Father Michael Welton to tackle this difficult yet important subject in understanding the choices the priests had to make on an ongoing basis. He came to Salesian 2 years after Larry. His contribution provided a very rich perspective. His views, as he wanted to title his input, came out very clearly, crisply, and uniquely. Father Welton was also passionately known to the boys as Mpungane, which is housefly in Siswati. I can never recall how he got the name, but he is very proud of it. In one of his writings, he sings praises of either himself or the name, where he says, Imphungane le mabalabala, leyadukela etiveni, leyatsandwa ngito tonke tive, yate yatsandwa ngemaswati. The spotted fly, which found itself in different nations, was loved by all those nations, and in particular the Swazi nation. This praise singing was first delivered by Father Sipho Matabela, whilst a group of climbers were scaling Mpembegati mountain in Swaziland. Amongst other roles, Father Welton taught religious knowledge and took up the role of headmaster when Larry retired. He has written widely on various subjects and continues to be one of the thinkers in the Salesian community, a trait that was influenced by his childhood. I get to meet him again on 23 December 2017 at his latest posting, St. John Bosco Parish in Malkerns, west of Manzini. The last time I saw him was in 1982. Driving to our meeting, I wondered if I would recognize him. I had the advantage of being walked to his humble office, so I did not have as much a challenge as I would have had I found myself having to pick him from a crowd. He has changed a bit. Age is beginning to show, although he still runs marathons. He has completed 14 comrades, an impressive career. He has kept a very healthy crop of hair. I struggled to get him to remember me, but after a few minutes of recollecting, the light shone. Father Welton has always been highly philosophical, which made him ideal to deal with this subject. One profound memory that displays this trait was one year when he was invigilating an exam. He found 2 boys sharing notes. The cold silence of the exam room was broken by the sound of tsk, tsk, tsk. We all turned around to see what was happening. We saw the 2 boys in a panic and Mpungane towering above them. We expected both to be kicked out. Instead, Father Welton despondently uttered the words, "The blind leading the blind," and continued with his walkabout, as if nothing had happened. This was a remarkably unexpected response for that occurrence. When I asked him to give me his view on the subject, his opening advice was, "You will have to do some required reading of Irish and British history." This, fortunately, had already been done. He goes on to provide a strict cautionary when he says, "There are few terms that stand out to me, and these need to be handled carefully, but are instructive in how I think about our relationships. One of these is British, which is almost a hateful word to me. It conjures up the symbolism of the Union Jack. It is a confection of subjugated nations in an enforced union with Westminster, the mother of parliaments. The other is English, a generally pleasant word to me for the following reasons. Firstly, it is the language of England. Secondly, the English village, an interesting culture, a clever, educated, at times eccentric people. on Irish nationalism. With the same vigour, he goes on to pick up on a theme that both Larry and Father Walsh had reflected passionately about, namely authority. Authority is not a God-given right vis-à-vis Irish-British relations. We Irish are naturally against the government, which is tantamount to being against the British government as it pertained to Ireland, or against any political party currently in power. If I am sending a letter or Christmas card to my cousins in England, I would never put UK as the address, always England. In that way, I am working towards the disestablishment of the Church of England and the repeal of the Union, the separating of the Union Jack into its original kingdoms. In the world of rugby, the English have taken a lesson from Irish nationalism and now wave the flag of St. George at matches. However, the Irish have become interested in rugby in the past few years, but in the interests of an all-Ireland factor, sing an effete version of our identity called Ireland Island. Only occasionally do they sing our national anthem. It is too violent for some, called the Soldier's Song. This resonated with the experience in South Africa and Swaziland, where the histories of these countries are defined by uniting liberation anthems. The Irish national anthem, Oran Navian, was composed and written early in 1910 or late in 1909, whilst that of South Africa, originally known as Nkosi Sikelel' Afrika, was written in 1897 as a Pan-African liberation song that covered Swaziland prior to its independence in 1968. Both anthems had to be adapted later owing to changing circumstances. This is another reminder of the historical parallel. Despite the different worlds and different times, the colonial master was the same. What is also common is that both the origins or popularity of the Irish and South African anthems benefited from the influence of the Church, respectively R.F. O'Reilly, an Irish priest, and a Methodist schoolteacher named Enoch Sontonga. He continues with his terms. Association football, we Irish call it the game of the garrison, namely of the British Army in its garrisons or barracks.